We're here at Lantern Tree Books in Carpinteria with my good friend Louis Torres. Louis, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about the origins of the shop?
Sure thing. Thanks, Devin. My name is Louis Force Torres. I own Lantern Tree Books in Carpinteria, California. I also own Polyverse Publishing, and we run a nonprofit, this non-religious called bookchurch.org. The main thing, the reason we wanted a brick and mortar bookstore in Carpinteria is that there wasn't one, and we needed one. So we can claim that we're Santa Barbara County's southernmost bookstore. Sorry,
I like that.
Santa Barbara County's southernmost bookstore, or the bookstore that's closest to Rincon Point. Either one works. But for a community, the bookstore is something that's very important to a downtown area. It's very important. I consider them the soul of a community. And to see a place where I'm raising my family and setting down roots, it needed this.
Yeah. Yeah, you bought a handful of years ago. And then I guess, starting this and I guess talk about how important it is to you to be, starting a small business in the town where you've put down permanent roots.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm a new parent. My son just reached the 10-month mark. And so as a child, I always loved riding my bicycle down to our local bookstore in Solvang. And so I wanted the same thing for him and for other children. And once I realized, this is where my child's going to grow up, I knew that we needed the bookstore. If anything, just for other children to have that experience.
Mm-hmm. And just talking with you, you've already turned this into kind of like a communal hub. So talk about some of the events you host and sort of the vibe you're trying to create here.
Sure. Well, a lot of people don't know the cultural relevance of Carpinteria, but we have a lot of art, culture. We have a theater here that's one of the oldest in California, if not the oldest. And so when people are following that path in life, they want to be intellectually stimulated. And so to have a place that sells new books, but also draw in community members such as artists, writers, professionals in the tech industry, travelers, it's really a great hub, the town itself, and so they need a hub for their interests.
Got it. So speaking of the town, speaking of being right here on Linden, which is one of basically the main drag in Carp, what do you see for the future of Carp, Linden itself, in terms of the trajectory of the town?
Sure. Well, being born in Santa Barbara, being raised in Solvang, I've seen a lot of growth within the county. Carpinteria has a lot of potential moving forward. We're a beach town, but we're also near the mountains. We have nature, we have agriculture. Like I mentioned before, we have art and community. And so what's happening is sort of a renaissance in downtown Carpinteria with a lot of the buildings that have been sitting empty since COVID getting renovated, getting purchased, new plans in place to create a unified vision for Carpinteria. So what we'll see is, as I mentioned before, a sort of a renaissance where we'll have more types of food, different types of retailers, and just different things for different folks traveling.
So there's probably people watching this right now that do a lot of their book shopping online. Talk a bit about what's important for a local bookshop to offer, to bring in that business and kind of bring people in rather than strictly staying online.
Sure. Yeah, as a publisher, we study this quite a bit, actually. My background in international publishing allows me an opportunity to speak to people from other countries and watch the market. We all know that online purchasing is easier and simpler in many situations. But when it comes to books, to hold one, to see one, to open one, to smell one is an experience that really, it's not the same getting it in a box at your back door. And so the bookstore allows people an opportunity to see so many different stories, so many different covers, to see older books, to see newer books, to pick them up and actually hold them. What's magical is sort of like how records came back and record stores started coming back, is that people appreciate the piece not just as a digital format, but as a physical format. And that's what's happening with the bookstores. And so having an indie bookstore is important so that people can still experience that. We've also seen an interesting phenomenon where younger children are on their devices, they're staring at their screens. A lot of people are saying, you know, this is all that they're doing. But they'll come into the bookstore and they'll pick up a book, and it will be treated with such respect and such love, because it's something maybe unfamiliar, because this book is almost like a story from their history. Maybe their grandparents had a book they passed down. And so they're so fascinated by this physical format of the book itself. Coincidentally, older folks who might be unable to utilize computers or devices as easily as someone who's grown up with them have now been adopting ebooks, not because of the tech or anything like that, but because they're able to be zoomed in, zoomed out, because the places are able to be saved. And so we see older generations adopting technology at a faster pace because they want to read. And we see younger generations adopting the physical book because to them it's art.
Oh, wow.
And it's beautiful. And that's what a bookstore will allow.
That's full circle. That's incredible. Tell us what you're reading right now.
Okay. Right now I am reading a trilogy called Ambergris, which is a fantasy series. It's something I'd never seen before, but when I go into a bookstore, books call to me. I'll walk past them once, I'll scout the rest of the store, I'll walk back to them again. This one was in Tucson, Arizona, and for some reason this book just kept calling to me, kept calling to me. It is a master class in telling a story in a single sentence. An incredible story, Ambergris being this fantasy city placed in a jungle. It makes me want to up my own writing game. It's that well written.